Later on today, we're going to be speaking with political scientist Rachel Bitecofer. And one of the questions that I will have for Rachel is, are the numbers that increasingly suggest this might not be a disastrous midterm for Democrats, are they numbers that can be trusted? Because we're getting more and more of these numbers. Now, you might remember that last week or the week before, maybe it was, I told you that for the first time in this primary season, in the 538 forecast for the U.S. Senate, Democrats became favored to retain control. Now, it was a very small margin. It was 52 to 48, meaning if you run 100 simulations with the current inputs, in 52 of them, Democrats end up controlling the Senate, and in 48 of them, Republicans end up controlling the Senate. This is sort of like if you had a coin that instead of being a 50-50 coin was a 52-48 coin, meaning the more times you flip it, the closer you'll get to 52% heads and 48% tails. Now, if you only flip it once, it's either going to be heads or tails. And 52 to 48 is a very, very small margin in favor of heads. But the more times you run the simulation, the closer to 52% you will get. That's the idea here. Those numbers have now grown to 57% in the exact same 538 forecast. And in fact, Nate Silver put together an article on 538, which you can check out, which has a bunch of different data. The article from a few days ago called "The Political Environment Might Be Improving for Democrats." And indeed, when you look at how the Senate forecast has changed, if you looked at the beginning of June, Democrats only had about a 40 to 45% shot at holding the Senate. Remember, Democrats currently have the Senate 50-50 with the Vice President Kamala Harris as the tie-breaking vote in the event of a 50-50 tie. Those numbers have increased to where now it is a 57% chance that Democrats control the Senate after the midterm elections and only a 43% chance that Republicans control it. Now, as we know, even things that are statistically unlikely sometimes happen. Going into the 2016 presidential election, the odds were that Hillary Clinton had an 85% chance of winning and Donald Trump had a 15% chance of winning. Now, 85% is not 100%. You run 100 simulations. In 15 of them, Trump would come out the winner, and indeed he did. This is a very, very small margin. But we have to, it's not even really come to terms with. It's understand that there's a unique or at least an uncommon opportunity this November. Normally, and I know you guys, or some of you are sick of hearing this, normally when one party takes the White House in the first midterm election, they lose the House and or Senate. Or if they already don't have control of the House, they fall even further behind. Or if they have control of the House and retain it, it's by a smaller margin. You get the point. We might not see that this November. And if the question is why, which is to me the most interesting question, right now, everything we know, everything we can say is that it's because primarily of two issues. Number one, abortion, and number two, gun safety. Although I have to say, compared to 6-8 weeks ago, the gun safety issue is not nearly in the forefront as much as it was. But we have two issues that normally are not good issues for Democrats to run on that are helping Democrats right now. The country mostly wants abortion to be legal in most cases. We saw that on Tuesday night in Kansas, where Kansas voters voted to defeat an amendment which would have allowed completely banning abortion. They voted to defeat that amendment by a 20-point margin. That is not a small margin, and that's a very red state, one of the reddest states in the country. And when Roe v. Wade was overturned by the Supreme Court, even many centrists and center-right people said that this is wrong. This is wrong. Abortion should be legal in most cases. And that may not help Republicans in November. In fact, it could be their undoing. And in addition to that, although I think it's diminishing compared to a couple of months ago, continued mass shootings and just absurd reactions from Republicans. Oh, the issue is doors, armed teachers, put more guns in the schools, ballistic backpacks and grenade resistant blankets or whatever it was that was being proposed. Outrageous. And although there are still many millions of true believers who think the solution here is more guns, certainly not to restrict access to guns, more and more of the country supports all sorts of common sense gun safety regulations. We've looked at the numbers, overwhelming support for background checks in all cases, even personal transfers and sales, gun show, every situation, there should be a background check. And I've given you the list, but our elected officials, by and large, don't support these things, at least not the Republican Party. This really seems to be hurting Republicans. And this is why now, in what should be a really big defeat, I mean, by all historical assessments, Democrats should get crushed in November. It's increasingly looking, if we had to just say what's the most mathematically likely scenario, the most likely scenario is Democrats lose the House, but not by much, and Democrats maintain control of the Senate. Now, it might not go that way. We all must vote. We must get involved. We must phone bank, all of the things, right? We're going to be talking about them because it could come down to one race. In the Senate, it really could come down to one race. We are going to continue talking about it. But the inevitable massive red wave that many had been touting for a long time since Joe Biden was sworn in, that massive red wave seems increasingly unlikely. Many of you have emailed me and said, David, Herschel Walker has finally agreed to a debate against Raphael Warnock. And I looked at the video, and I have to tell you, I don't think Raphael Warnock is going to debate Herschel Walker. I don't really think Herschel Walker has agreed to anything. When you listen closely to the video, it seems as though he is putting in place all sorts of conditions and obstacles. But let me back up before we look at the video. What the hell am I talking about? Herschel Walker won his Republican primary race in Georgia for the Senate. Now, Walker will face incumbent Democratic Senator Raphael Warnock. One of the real question marks has been, since Herschel Walker cannot speak, how could he possibly debate? During the Republican primary, Herschel Walker did not debate, and he easily sailed to victory, basically riding on the wave of celebrity and, to some degree, probably Trump's endorsement in Georgia. So now the question is again coming up. Is Herschel Walker going to debate Raphael Warnock? And as I've told you before, Herschel Walker, we don't know if it's some combination of CTE from playing football, chronic traumatic encephalopathy, mental illness, whatever. We don't know what. He really cannot express himself. He can't explain his positions on issues. He often is completely unable to use words to assemble meaning and communicate it in the English language. He just can't speak. And there's been a real question as to how is this guy possibly going to debate? The headlines a couple of days ago were, Walker has agreed to a debate. He's going to debate Raphael Warnock. Let's look at two videos. I don't think he's going to debate Raphael Warnock. Here is Walker on the Sean Hannity Fox News propaganda program. Listen to what he says.
Now, will you debate Raphael Warnock?
Well, I'm going to open this up on your show. Right now, I have accepted a debate in Savannah, Georgia, in his backyard, that we can debate October the 14th in front of a crowd, that it'll be his people, because we're in his backyard, and this debate is going to be about the people. It's not about some political party. It's not about the press, but the people need to see the differences between Senator Warnock and Herschel Walker. And what I mean by that, they're going to see that, as you just said, Georgia don't want high gas prices. Well, he voted against the pipeline. Georgia want to protect our men and women in blue. Well, he called them names. He called them thugs. Georgia don't want men and women's sports. Well, he voted to put men and women's sports. Well, it is time that people see the difference. So in October the 14th, I want Senator Warnock to be ready, because I've accepted a debate, and now he can quit talking and show the people that he's going to stand behind his words and show up for the debate.
Okay. So October 14th, we don't actually know that that's a date that's been proposed or agreed to with Raphael Warnock with a crowd. I mean, okay, so that's another condition. It will be a debate about the people, not about a party or the media. So does that mean that Raphael Warnock and Herschel Walker can't have a moderator? What exactly is it that Herschel Walker is saying? It's all kind of weird, and it feels pretty soft and squishy. So then Herschel Walker did another video. This was very clearly, by the way, this was very clearly read off of some kind of teleprompter, and this was the best take that they got. And again, it's not really sounding to me like Herschel Walker is actually going to debate anybody. Listen to this.
One out. I'm ready to debate. In fact, I just accepted a debate in your backyard.
So it's the same talking point. I accepted a debate in your backyard. Okay, but has one been arranged? What does that mean? You've accepted it.
Savannah, where you got home field advantage. And it's going to be broadcast statewide. I'm not a politician. I don't look like a politician. I don't sound like a politician. And frankly, I'm tired of politicians.
Okay.
So I'm not going to obey the demands of the elite press and the liberal establishment to stand in an empty room for a debate.
So to me, I'm hearing if it's a normal debate where there will be moderators and like some control of the crowd, Walker won't do it. That's what I'm hearing. And quite frankly, it's very difficult to imagine that his campaign advisors would allow him to debate. I mean, I understand why he's not debating, because it would be a disaster.
That's supposed to be about the people. You see, I don't answer to the press, and I don't answer to Raphael Warnock. I don't answer to anyone but God and the people of Georgia.
So what? God has to moderate? I mean, he's giving himself so many outs here.
So I accepted a debate that's about the voters. I'm leaving the media elite behind and taking my message right to the people.
So it sounds like basically he wants it to be a rally. I mean, do we know that Herschel Walker knows what a debate is in the political space, like what they look like?
So they can see the difference between the two of us. October the 14th in Savannah, Senator Warnock, I hope to see you there.
Yeah. So that's the best take they were able to get. And I mean, listen, I have to tell you, if this guy becomes a senator over Raphael Warnock, it would be even more destructive in what it means about what's going on in the United States. I mean, Trump can at least speak. This guy doesn't understand a single issue, and he can't speak. And then you look at someone like Raphael Warnock, who understands issues, can explain his perspective clearly and decisively and in a way that connects to the English language. If voters vote for Herschel Walker and make him one of 100 U.S. senators, I already think things are sort of in the toilet in the United States to some degree politically, but it would be like a 10 to 15 flusher, let's put it that way, if Herschel Walker is able to win. So I hope he debates. I don't believe that this is him really being committed to a debate, and I think his advisors would be crazy to allow him to debate. Let me know what you think. Are we going to see him in an actual debate with Raphael Warnock? Find me on Twitter at @dpacman. We'll take a quick break and be right back. Don't forget that the best way to support the David Pakman Show is by becoming a member, which gives you access to the daily bonus show, the regular show with no commercials. You also get access to our entire archive of every episode dating back a really long time, and plenty of other awesome membership perks. Go to joinpacman.com and use the coupon code BETTER21 for a huge discount. Joinpacman.com. We are going to look today at one of the most remarkable pieces of video that I have ever seen in the entire time I have been doing this show. And you all know we've seen a lot of outrageous video. In the middle of Alex Jones' defamation trial, it is the award phase during which a jury is to decide how much money should the plaintiffs get for having been defamed by Infowars conspiracy theorist Alex Jones. It was revealed that Alex Jones' own incompetent lawyer sent a digital copy of all of Alex Jones' text messages and phone communications to the plaintiff's lawyers. I really need people to understand how insane this is. Alex Jones, for the last 10, 12, 14 days, however long this phase of the trial has been going on, has been lying and making claims like, I never did any texting about Sandy Hook, which is the subject matter of the defamation trial. And all along, the plaintiff's counsel had knowledge that Alex Jones was lying. He did text about Sandy Hook. And the reason the lawyer knew it is Alex Jones' lawyer mistakenly sent him all of the records. And yesterday during the trial, it came out, this video going instantly viral. Do you know what perjury is? Becoming the line of the day. You have to see this.
So you did get my text messages, and it said you didn't. Nice trick.
Yes, Mr. Jones.
Oh.
Indeed.
Yes, Mr. Jones. Indeed.
You didn't give this text message to me. You don't know where this came from. Do you know where I got this?
No.
Mr. Jones, did you know that 12 days ago, your attorneys messed up and sent me an entire digital copy of your entire cell phone with every text message you've sent for the past 2 years, and when informed, did not take any steps to identify it as privileged or protect it in any way. And as of 2 days ago, it fell free and clear into my possession.
This is one of the best things that has ever happened during a trial I've seen.
That is how I know you lied to me when you said you didn't have text messages about.
And this is the moment that Alex Jones' soul leaves his body. You can see it exit at the 47-second mark in this video.
Did you know that?
I told you the truth. This is your Perry Mason moment. I gave them my phone, and then...
Mr. Jones, you need to answer the question.
No,
Did you know this happened?
No, I didn't know this happened. But I mean, I told you I gave them the phone over. Just
answer the question.
You said in your deposition, you searched your phone. You said you pulled down the text, did the search function for Sandy Hook. That's what you said, Mr. Jones, correct?
And I had several different phones with this number, but I did, yeah. Well, of course. I mean, that's why you got it.
The pretzel that Alex Jones is twisting himself into is really something else here.
No, Mr. Jones, that's not what I have.
My lawyer sent it to you, but I'm hiding it. Okay.
Mr. Jones,
Mr. Jones,
please just answer questions. There's no question. Mr. Bankston also only asks questions.
Sure. Mr. Jones, in discovery, you were asked, do you have Sandy Hook text messages on your phone? And you said no, correct? You said that under oath, Mr. Jones, didn't you?
I mean, if I was mistaken, I was mistaken, but you got the messages right there.
You know what perjury is, right? I just want to make sure you know before we go any further. You know what it is.
Yes, I do. I mean, I'm not a tech guy. I told you I gave in my testimony the phone to the lawyers before or whatever, and so you got my phone, but we didn't give it to you.
No, Mr. Jones. One more time. And please remember, if you need to assert the Fifth Amendment, you can. I need to know that you can do that. But you testified.
If you need to plead the fifth here, then you're able to do that, which of course, I mean, it's a strategy as well, because that if all of a sudden he asserts the Fifth Amendment, even though, of course, strictly speaking, that cannot be used in order to indicate guilt or responsibility, it's certainly not going to look very good. I have no idea how plaintiff's counsel I don't know how plaintiff's counsel was able to go 2 weeks without the biggest ass-eating grin on his face as Alex Jones tells lie after lie, knowing that he has the records already. He waited until the perfect moment and he dropped it like he had been planning this his entire life. It's very difficult to imagine a more humiliating and public implosion than this. And then also during yesterday's testimony, Alex Jones was confronted about the fact that during the trial, he's been broadcasting images of the judge on fire. And that's also just another incredible moment. Look at this.
Thank you, Your Honor. Can you display 129? The person on the left of this image is our judge, correct?
Yes.
The person on the right is another judge you don't like, right?
Yes.
Okay. One of the things you can take that down. One of the things you've been talking about a lot recently on your show, even within the past couple months, is your allegation that government officials are aiding in pedophilia, child trafficking, and the grooming of children.
He's basically being confronted with Pizzagate as applied to the judge in a court of law while under oath.
You mean like what Jeffrey Epstein did with the Clintons?
Sure, if that's a yes, is that a yes?
Yes.
Okay. And on Thursday, you and Infowars started connecting those allegations to our judge, didn't you?
No.
In fact, Mr. Jones, you're telling the world not to believe what happens in this courtroom because the judge worked with Child Protective Services, who you say is involved with pedophilia and child trafficking, correct?
Not all of it, but the Texas Youth Commission got caught doing it a lot. There's been a lot of that here.
I'm not asking you that, Mr. Jones. I'm asking you, you're telling...
Imagine if every time these right-wing nuts lied, they were subjected to under oath cross-examination of their claims. I mean, Trump would have no campaign.
The world not to believe what's happened in this trial because this judge is involved with CPS, who is working with child traffickers and pedophilia, correct?
By the way, if you're not watching, the look on the judge's face as Alex Jones is being questioned about his claims about this very judge, I have never seen anything like this.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
Okay. Your Honor, at this time, we would like to show a clip from Mr. Jones' show on Thursday where those words are said.
For impeachment
For
purposes.
impeachment purposes, yes, Your Honor.
All right. So now they get into, Alex Jones' lawyer tries to exclude the video that they want to play, and ultimately they do play it. This is unlike anything I have ever seen, a massive public humiliation for Alex Jones. And in this next segment, we are going to look at when the subject of the money finally comes up. So one of the things that's at issue in the Alex Jones defamation trial award phase is Alex Jones' claim of bankruptcy. Now, Alex Jones is not bankrupt. However, Alex Jones has filed for bankruptcy, and he has even admitted that part of it is in order to shield or protect certain assets from the potential settlement that is coming, the potential award that is coming for the defamatory statements that Alex Jones made. One of the things Alex Jones tried to do during his testimony is to claim, I am bankrupt. And the judge actually directed him to stop saying that he is not bankrupt, that he may have filed for bankruptcy, but that he is not bankrupt and he can't continue to say that. Yesterday, Judge Maya Guerra-Gamble actually talked to Alex Jones about what sort of a settlement do you believe would be fair? And Alex Jones trying to beg for mercy, saying even $2 million would sink Infowars. Now, that's sort of hard to believe, given that it's on record that Infowars would sometimes make $800,000 in a single day. But check out this incredible exchange.
What compensation would you believe to be appropriate?
What compensation do I think appropriate? Despite these numbers that were presented the best week we ever had, that's when COVID was starting, and there was a run on storable food nationwide, and so they...
Mr. Jones.
No, I'm just saying.
We don't...
Well,
what
speaking of
compensation would you believe to be appropriate? It doesn't really matter about that.
I understand, but I can answer the question however I wish. I'm not barred from talking about where we're at financially.
No, you are at this stage. Right now, the question is what compensation would be appropriate?
Any compensation above $2 million will sink us and we'll be shut down.
No, appropriate, not to you. Appropriate for what happened to them.
I mean, I think it's appropriate for whatever you decide you want to do,
Okay.
and because I'm really.
That's a great answer. Thank you.
This is just like, I've never seen anything like this. And again, the question is, based on the acts, what do you believe is appropriate? And Alex Jones is saying, we can't afford anything over $2 million, which also, by the way, seems to be a lie. One of the other things that's been going on, and then we're going to go to a break, and we're going to get back to a little bit of this later, actually. One of the other things that's been going on is that, again, while the trial has been taking place on his program, Alex Jones has been saying things about the trial, the judge and the jury. And the judge also making an effort there to probably to prevent a mistrial or subsequent appeal by asking direct questions about the members of the jury.
Are you aware that this jury consists of 16 intelligent, fair-minded citizens who are not being improperly influenced in any way?
Yes, I don't think that you are operatives. I don't think that you are part of a false flag. I don't think that...
Alex Jones, no matter where he goes in life, he can't get away from this false flag operative stuff. He's now in a defamation trial, and he has to clarify he's not saying the jurors are part of a false flag.
You are bad people. I think you're good people. And I just am very, very critical about the whole process that I've been through so far, where I've given, I believed everything over, and then I'm always told we didn't, even though we're seeing it. And so that's why I'm really concerned, because a lot has been misrepresented.
You wandered off the question.
Okay.
Do you feel you're getting a fair trial, and if not, why not? But
I'm barred from saying.
succinctly, please.
I have been found guilty by a judge, and I thought in America we were found guilty by juries or innocent.
There's no guilty or innocence in civil court.
You couldn't write something. I mean, this is just unbelievable.
I understand.
Liable or not
Well-
guilty. So please don't use that. And you're not a lawyer. That's fine.
Okay, well, I've been found liable. Okay, so by a judge, and in all the other cases coming up, I've already been found. So this is a dangerous new system they're setting up, and if people want to get rid of that and get rid of America, it's okay. I understand we're an old republic. Maybe time for us to go.
Get rid of America. If Alex Jones has to pay up because of the things that he said, it's the end of America, folks. Incredible, unprecedented. And just dozens and dozens of emails from people in the audience pouring in about this insanity. And we'll get back to a couple other elements of it a little bit later in the show. If you're curious about what these clips look like and you're just listening today, you'll be able to find these clips on our Instagram, David Pakman Show. Find us there. If you value what we do at the David Pakman Show, remember to support us on Patreon. Go to patreon.com/David Pakman Show, where you can get access to behind the scenes videos, the daily bonus show, the commercial free daily show, as well as special discounts on merch, including hats, hoodies, mugs, and t-shirts. You can support the show for as little as $2 a month. Check it out at patreon.com/David Pakman Show. It's great to welcome back to the program today Rachel Bitecofer, who's an election forecaster and analyst, host of the podcast The Election Whisperer, as well as the founder of Strike Pack. Rachel, always great having you on. Thank you.
Yeah, and David, I have to update my bio because I left Strike Pack in April and do independent work now.
Okay, well, we will make that change. We will update that. So listen, usually there's this conventional wisdom. When Democrats run on issues like abortion and gun safety, it doesn't do anything to get Democrats out to vote, but it angers Republicans. It gets Republicans out to vote against Democrats. And yet, when we look at the polling over the last 2 months, it seems as though talking about Roe v. Wade and talking about Republican inaction on gun safety is actually activating the Democratic base. And all of a sudden, the numbers are not looking as bad for Democrats as they typically would in the first midterm after winning the White House. Is that an accurate assessment, or am I missing something?
No, I mean, no, I'm going to say it's not. I'm going to say there's some things that I would push back on there.
Okay.
I mean, there is a perception, right? And I'm sure the progressive left is used to hearing this excuse as to why cultural issues have not been focused on in Democratic campaigns, this idea of cross mobilization, right? Like you're trying to mobilize your own base, but all you do is motivate the other one. That there is absolutely no data to support that assertion, and I have tried to prove it quantitatively before. So it's really important for people to understand that, you know, the Republican Party has been fed that kind of messaging for years, and it doesn't necessarily motivate us. What motivates us is a fear or threat catalyst. So when I look at what happened in Kansas last night, I started talking once the memo leaked for the Roe evisceration. So if that memo comes to fruition and they, repeal Roe and all these abortion laws go into effect, the GOP is going to be able to ban, total abortion ban in the places they have trifecta control. What we're going to see is a potentially something so strong and so catastrophic in the body politic that you could see a momentum change from the fundamental midterm fundamentals that are against the in-party, right? And so what we saw initially was spontaneous protest pop up everywhere. That was a really good data sign, something similar to what we saw in 2017 and 2018 when we saw the Trump effect coming. And then, of course, Kansas is our first election since then. It was, of course, heavily focused on. It was the only thing on the ballot. So it's really important for people to understand that abortion salience from Roe is a product in Kansas, is a product of it being heavily focused on. So it's really important people focus on it. It's not going to be some residual effect that they can tap into without trying to harvest it. And it's based on negative partisanship. People are active, our side especially, when they feel threatened. And when Biden got elected, a lot of people rolled back that fear, and now it's back.
And so when you look at the 538 Senate forecast, for example, which has kind of ticked up and up, where now it says Democrats have a 57% chance of holding the Senate, that is the result of exactly the factors you just listed.
Yes, these are quantitative metrics. So I put out, if you follow me regularly on Twitter, and I recommend you do, and just read my thread, because it's really where I do most of my analysis these days because of time limitations. You'll see that I start talking about midterm effects. The midterm in the 4-year presidential term always hurts the in party, because the in party is the one getting all the bad headlines,
right?
Especially when it faces a dishonest opposition, right? And so when we talked about the midterm effect, I said, listen, there's been 2 interruptions in the midterm effect. Both of those were times when the national conversation got disrupted. And the most recent was 2002 with Bush, because keep in mind, he was seated into the presidency of a very, very large controversy and was not popular until 9/11. Right. And so that midterm would have been bruising for Republicans, and instead they gained seats. So I started talking about, look, if we can't just bury our heads in the sand and pretend that fundamentals don't matter. So let's try to move the mechanisms that move the midterm effect. And that's about national referendum on the Republican Party. And we really are starting to see the system, resonate those changes in data.
So in 2002, like you say, at the time of the midterms, the president had a high approval rating as a result of 9/11. Right now, Joe Biden has a very low approval rating. I went back and looked. It looks like you have to go back to 1946 or 45 when a president at this point in their first term had this low an approval rating. It was Truman. Is the expectation that with Biden at 37%, that will specifically hurt Democrats in November, or have the two become disaggregated to some degree now versus 20 years ago?
Oh, absolutely disaggregated. And every time somebody tells me, I did a cross-time analysis where it was like this in 1993. And I'm like, yeah, dude, because polarization it's not some buzzword. It's a quantifiable behavioral characteristic that manifests in behavior across elites, the mass public, politicians, media system. And it has really disrupted the ability to look back in time and make comparisons, because let me explain why Biden's approval rating is so low, and also lower than Donald Trump's, when any objective assessment would definitely tell you which of these 2 presidencies were more controversial and turbulent. And the reason is because hyperpartisanship and polarization is asymmetrical. It affects the right side of the aisle more, which is why the Republican Party is having a flirt with fascism moment here. And one of the ways that it manifests is tribal allegiance. So whatever happened with Donald Trump, no matter how bad the headline was that week, his approval rating was stagnant. It was a flat line. That should never happen in a healthy democracy. Okay. And once you started to see inelastic presidential approval, you start to realize, okay, I'm measuring latent partisanship in the electorate and not actual objectivity. So what you see with Biden and why he's worse than Trump, guys, you're going to love this, is because progressive Democrats are willing to tell pollsters that they're dissatisfied with what the administration's been able to get done. So you actually see an 80-20 partisan split on approval for Democrats versus what you might see a 90-95-10 for Donald Trump.
So I don't really make economic predictions, but just in taking a look at different indicators, it seems to me that next Tuesday we're going to get an inflation number for July that's significantly lower than that from June. There's going to be the ability for Democrats to accurately talk about the economy is looking better as we get into November. With the 3 months that remain between now and the midterm elections, is there an opportunity to get back to talking about the economy? Will it make a difference? Is that what Democrats should do if indeed inflation starts declining and the numbers look better?
I mean, here's the thing is, and I talk about this a lot. There's three issues that are going to dominate the midterm in terms of the availability of issues to affect things, which is mostly on coalitional turnout, but also conversion pool, that 10 or 15% of pure independents who can be affected are going to be affected by the national atmosphere. And so what I've said with Democrats is, the Republican Party voted en masse against the one piece of legislation we were able to put on the floor to lower inflation. So you wedge that and you just hit them over the head with one theme. They had a chance to act against inflation, and what did they do? They put politics over you.
Is there any Senate race right now that you consider to be any kind of bellwether in a sense, or are the things that are happening, for example, in the Walker-Warnock race in Georgia completely unrelated to what's happening with like Oz Fetterman in Pennsylvania, or like what are you looking at in terms of specific races?
Well, I mean, we've got a really interesting scenario when we think about Oz and Walker. I mean, both of these are really tremendously weak candidates. Okay? Yeah. So that, I mean, I think Pennsylvania was always going to be a toss-up and maybe advantage Fetterman against a normal nominee. And then luckily, and it's a product of a bad nominee and also what the Fetterman campaign is doing with the clay that they have. Okay, so getting a bad nominee is one thing. Making use of that and using it as an effective branding weapon against your opponent is another. Okay, and so the reason we're seeing such good numbers out of Georgia and Pennsylvania right now is because both of those campaigns went aggressive, especially the outside groups too, in the case of Georgia, on branding the opponent and creating a disqualification effect. And that's really what Democrats have to do in this midterm. So normally, you might look at Republicans and be like, okay, inflation's high. They're not offering you inflation solutions, right? They run against one thing, and that is Democrats are socialists that want to turn your men child into women, and we're going to save you from there, right? So like when we think about So when you think about inflation and what that party is offering, they are so weak on the economy that it should not be hard at all for Democrats to disqualify change. And so when I talk about messaging on economy, on democracy, rights, freedom, and abortion, which all tie in, I'm really talking about messaging that is focused squarely on the Republican Party, making sure people understand what that party looks like today, how crazy and dangerous it is for them personally.
The asymmetrical aspect to this between Republicans and Democrats seems almost like scarily present in the Walker versus Warnock race, because I mean, Walker can barely explain a single position. Like the guy can barely speak. And we've talked before, like, is it CTE from football? Is it, there's all these different things. Okay, you can speculate about. He can't articulate his position on any issue. And yet he's only losing by like 8 or 9 points or something like that, which just shows the completely different standards that Republicans have for who they're willing to vote for.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, no, I mean, here's the thing. Once you get latent partisanship, so like no one's paying attention to this stuff right now that we know about. So, you know, once the campaign actually gets going in September and the rest of the marginal voting population gets brought into the conversation, actually what you're going to see is his vote share probably will go up, not down, dude. And that's because a lot, I mean, they voted for an obvious child predator in Alabama, 90-10 in that special election that Doug Jones won. And Doug Jones won it, okay? But he did not win it because Republicans rejected a child predator. He won it because of of massive turnout and black vote and black voter turnout and, a little bit of conversion pull off. It was a kind of like a perfect storm that allowed him to do it. But if they'll put him in the Senate, this man that had a New York, 11 accusations of being a child predator, they'll put anybody in there. It doesn't matter, because what they care about now is seizing power and then using it to crush us.
So let's talk a little bit in the last few minutes we have about the way in which 22 may impact 24, specifically for Trump and Biden. There's the idea that depending on how Trump endorsed and MAGA people do in 2022, it will impact whether Trump tries to be the nominee in 24. Another perspective is Trump's going to try because he thinks it'll keep him out of legal trouble. So there's like the Trump side of things. On the Biden side, I've never really felt Biden plan to run for re-election in 24. I just don't think he's doing it. I don't think he ever really wanted to. Jen Psaki from the get-go would say Joe Biden intends to run. And then when Kamala Harris said he's running, the next day she walked it back and said his intention is to run. So I just don't think he's running for re-election. How does what happens in 22 impact the potential candidacies of either of those two people?
I mean, I'm going to tell you, these two elections roll together, guys. If we do not show up in large numbers and defend democracy here in 22, then we stand potential to lose the governorships, no matter how bad the candidates are, in Michigan and Pennsylvania. If we were to lose either one of those, then we'd lose the blue wall, the big three, and that's the big three that hits 270. So we can lose Georgia, we can lose Arizona. Okay, and we may well lose those to fascist Republicans if people don't vote. But at the end of the day, like, we cannot lose Michigan and Pennsylvania, or we do not have a guarantee of a free and fair election at all for 2024. I mean, imagine a newly minted Republican governor of Michigan. Do you think they're going to be on the side of democracy or on the side of fascism?
Right.
I'm going with fascism.
What do you think about the Biden 24 thing? Have you given any thought to it?
You know, here's what I would say is if he doesn't plan on running, he doesn't act like that. To me, he is as cautious as any traditional first-term president, which is, you know, if I had to offer a criticism to the administration, it would be that. This is a moment for Churchill, not Chamberlain. We need Winston Churchill posturally in that leadership position. We need somebody to speak very frankly headed into 22 about the stakes of this election, what's on the ballot across these 50 states and state legislatures and federal House elections, because, you know, at the end of the day, he's got the bully pulpit. Nobody else has that bully pulpit. And I honestly think whether he intends to run or not, that would serve him best politically too.
But right now, you don't question that his plan is to run for re-election.
I just don't bother speculating about stuff like that right now, David. I'm really focused on trying to keep democracy from falling into a fascist pit.
Fair. That's a good thing to focus on, I would say, actually. We've been speaking with Rachel Bitecofer, election forecaster, analyst. The podcast is The Election Whisperer. Rachel, always a pleasure having you on. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. And if you don't mind, I'm going to plug my new book.
Please.
It's going to be coming out 2023 by Crown, and it's called Hit 'em Where It Hurts: How to Save Democracy by Beating Republicans at Their Own Game. And,
well, I'm
again,
sure we'll have you on to talk about it when the book is out. Yeah, for sure. Thank you, Rachel.
Bye.
Follow us on social media. Interact with the David Pakman Show community. See exclusive content. See when we're taking calls live. And stay up to date on other big show announcements. We post daily. Find us on Reddit, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Discord, and TikTok. All right, I know there's been a lot of Alex Jones stuff on today's program, but it really is an incredible situation. Now, as if things aren't already looking bad enough for Infowars conspiracy theorist Alex Jones after getting caught lying yesterday in court and all of these other things, we are now learning that as a result of what has come out in the defamation trial, the January 6th committee is planning to subpoena Alex Jones. This is an exclusive from Rolling Stone. January 6th committee prepares to subpoena Alex Jones' texts and emails. Jones' lawyers in a Sandy Hook defamation case fumbled 3 years worth of texts and emails. The committee would like to know more about any contacts with Donald Trump's team regarding the January 6th Capitol attack. This is and I'm not logged in, and we're not even going to deal with that right now. I have another article about this. January 6th panel set to subpoena Alex Jones after revelations in defamation trial. The January 6th Select Committee is reportedly planning to subpoena far-right conspiracy theorist Alex Jones after his texts and emails were revealed Wednesday in a defamation lawsuit filed by Sandy Hook shooting victim families. In a cross-examination, Sandy Hook victims attorney Mark Bankston told Jones his lawyer erroneously sent Bankston 3 years worth of the conspiracy theorist's emails and text messages copied from his phone. The January 6th Select Committee is now reportedly preparing to request those records from the attorneys representing the Sandy Hook victims to investigate the deadly Capitol insurrection. This is just unbelievable, going from bad to worse for Alex Jones. And Jones has managed to keep himself more or less isolated from the January 6th committee probe. That appears to be ending at this point in time, and it would not shock me. I mean, listen, at this point, I'm glad all of this is happening. It genuinely seems like this is what Alex Jones deserves if we want to talk about merit. But Alex Jones must be considering, do I fire my attorneys? Do I have grounds for appeal later based on improper or incompetent representation by counsel? Because this is just going wrong for him in absolutely every sense of the word. And it is not completely implausible that this could be the end of Infowars. Now, if that's the case, I'm not going to take pleasure in it from a personal perspective, but I do think it's important to be able to have a conversation about, is this entity a net positive or a net negative for the world and for society? And there's a real question about that, to put it lightly, to understate it, when it comes to Infowars. So we're going to be watching all of this. Let's hope that the January 6th committee does get those texts. Why? Well, because we should know to what degree Alex Jones was coordinating with people in Trump's circle. So that's the latest there. And we'll do one more Alex Jones thing before we move on. At the heart of the entire Alex Jones defamation trial, and now the award phase, and all of the viral videos that we've been looking at the heart of all of this are the original claims made by Alex Jones about the Sandy Hook shooting a decade ago. And the central element of those claims is that at one point, Alex Jones said it was all fake. It was a false flag orchestrated by whoever, the government, them, to create a pretext for the confiscation of firearms. And a critical moment during this defamation trial that we've been watching this week is when Alex Jones concedes that the Sandy Hook attack was 100% real. Now, does Alex Jones actually mean this? Or is he saying it because now he has been pushed into a corner and he believes this is how you minimize the damages that he will ultimately be responsible for? Well, let's take a listen to the moment where this happened.
To the end of 2014, we've had a video received in evidence of you stating your belief at that time that no one died at Sandy Hook, that the whole thing was fake. Do you understand, as you sit here today, how crazy that is?
I have said before that there have been so many lies and so many things in the past, and I was under a lot of pressure. And I truly, when I said those statements, when I say something, I mean it, that I really could believe that it was totally staged at that point. And I was basing that off of really Steve Buchanan, who has been a very prestigious person.
Do you understand?
Even in getting to saying that he now recognizes it was real, he's still defending why he thought it was fake.
Now that it was absolutely irresponsible of you to do that.
It was, especially since I've met the parents, and it's 100% real, as I said on the radio yesterday, and as I said here yesterday, it's 100% real, and the media still ran with lies that I was saying it wasn't real on air yesterday. It's incredible. They won't let me take it back. They just want to keep me in the position of being the Sandy Hook man. My son got confronted yesterday.
Projection speculation as to what the media wants. Mr. Jones is just...
All right, so now he goes off topic and it's interrupted. Now, do we believe Alex Jones actually believes this now? Or is this just a setup for some future Infowars exclusive about how the deep state and the Bilderbergs and the Dracula family forced Alex Jones to apologize? Or is it going to be, well, the attack was real, but everything leading up to it and everything afterwards, it's all part of some larger conspiracy? I don't know. I'm not sure whether he is genuinely sorry for what he did and he believes that it was wrong, empirically wrong, or that he's just upset that he's now being held accountable. I don't know the answer to that, but I'm curious to hear from you. One of the things that we've been talking about is Donald Trump's endorsement record. Donald Trump and others tout the power of the Trump endorsement. And indeed, Donald Trump over the last 48 hours has been posting uncontrollably to his platform, Truth Social.
Truth Social.
And it is all about his supposed endorsement record. Check this out. Trump spending a lot of time there. Trump candidates dominate Tuesday's primary elections. Molly Hemingway, Republicans need to understand why its prospects are so good. Trump reshaped the party. He's the savior, as far as Trump wants you to believe. Trump 2024 crushed the establishment. Retweeting all sorts of, or retruthing all sorts of different stuff. Trump endorsed candidates are ready to take back our country. I guess quoting Carrie Lake or who knows who. Blake Masters wins Arizona Republican Senate primary. Again, the idea is thanks to Trump there. Rusty Bowers, January 6th star witness, loses Republican primary in Arizona. The idea there is not a Trump endorsed guy, and he lost. Trump nods spurs Dixon to runaway win in Michigan. He's responsible there. Trump-backed Gibbs, this is the guy I interviewed. Trump-backed Gibbs ousts Meyer in Michigan Republican race for Congress. And just if you scroll down Truth Central, it is just post after post after post of Donald Trump taking credit for all of these different victories. Trump candidates dominate Tuesday primaries. Again, big historic win for Trump endorsed candidates across the country. Now 15-0 in Senate primaries. Perfect records in Arizona, Kansas, Michigan, and Missouri. Congratulations to our MAGA candidates. I could just go and go and go. I'm not going to subject you to this. Not going to subject you to this. So what is the truth about Donald Trump's endorsement record? Well, there's two sides to this. One side of it are just the numbers. Like, are the numbers actually as good as Donald Trump claims? And the second part would be, even if the numbers are as good as he claims, are they meaningful? Are they statistically significant when you consider the circumstances? Let's go through it one by one. So first and foremost, Ballotpedia maintains a page, the endorsements of Donald Trump. During Trump's presidency, there were 305 endorsements. Since Trump left office, there have been 237 additional endorsements. Okay, so this year, Trump's record is 92%. That's a good record. No question about it. We'll get back to that. In 2020, Trump's endorsement record was 77%. In 2019, it was 43%. Those were special elections. In 2018, Trump's record was 58%. So let me explain to you what this is all about. All right. When Donald Trump was actually making endorsements in general elections where they were actually contested races, he was basically 50-50. So it's almost like a coin flip. OK, if you consider that Trump endorsed some incumbents there and that Trump made some endorsements of individuals who were clearly the favorite at the time of the endorsement, barely 50-50 isn't particularly impressive. It's a little bit better than a coin flip. And a lot of the times he's endorsing people who sort of like should win anyway because they've raised the most money. They're the clear front runners. They're the incumbents. So that's number one. If you look at 2022, Trump's record is significantly better in the primaries because Donald Trump is sometimes getting behind the obvious leader. Sometimes that's an incumbent, and we know about the power of incumbency. And sometimes Trump is waiting until the absolute last moment. And sometimes it's very mushy. Like, for example, when he endorsed Eric in Missouri, and 2, if not 3 of the leading candidates were named Eric. Like, are we counting that as a win? I'm not sure whether that counts here. So it's not a particularly interesting endorsement story. Trump's endorsement history is very 50-50. And then in particular, in 2022, there's this bias to just supporting the person already likely to win. Now, I will give Trump credit. There are a handful of candidates who were not winning when Trump endorsed them, and then they ended up winning. And there's no doubt that Trump's endorsement has some power. The question is going to be the general election. The general election. In the general election endorsements in 2022, Trump is 0 for 10. He's made 10 endorsements in general elections where it's a Democrat versus a Republican, and he lost every single one. He doesn't talk about that. So we're going to pay attention to that very closely as well. We have a voicemail number. It's 219-2-DAVID-P. We haven't heard much from Eric from Massachusetts lately. He's this COVID conspiracy theorist who's been calling in off and on for the last 2 to 3 years. He's back, and he's accusing me of things that I never said.
Hey, David, it's Eric from Mass. I get the idea that you are frothing at the mouth to have lockdowns and masks again.
When did I say that?
And have the economy be crippled while you sit in your ivory tower.
No, I want the economy to do well so my stocks and bonds go up.
And dictate what everyone should do.
Wrong.
Like I told you, I was a leftist Democrat and had no problem with progressivism. Why do you think I found you? But when COVID hit, I knew they were lying.
Right. This guy was a progressive. Then all of a sudden there's a virus and he becomes an unhinged right-wing conspiracy theorist. Sounds more like it's a mind virus that infected him.
It's nothing to do with politics. It's about lies and truth. You know what I mean? And like you said, they're not going to start something for the midterms, and then they said it. What will your excuse be now? The midterms are coming. Lockdowns are coming. Get the out of here.
All right. So anyway, I don't support any of that stuff. I've said nothing about it. Eric is very, very delusional. And sometimes I think he's reacting to things other hosts have said. Like, I think sometimes it's just he's confused. We are going to talk on the bonus show today about the lawsuit against the PGA for suspending golfers who played in the Saudi-funded golf tour. We will talk about Josh Hawley's vote against Finland and Sweden joining NATO. And we will talk about Georgia residents being able to claim embryos as dependents on state taxes. Listen, if nothing else, they're being consistent. If that's a person, you should be able to claim an embryo as a dependent. I mean, it's at least consistent. All of those stories and more on today's bonus show.
Oh, the bonus show where you want to make money, but everybody else that makes money to fund themselves is bad.
Well, Alex, I don't know that you're in a position to really say much about the bonus show right now. You can sign up at joinpacman.com. We will see you then.